What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode 368. As if that number matters. We got named Ryan Hurst on the podcast with us today. Ryan is he's a black belt in Judo, brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu, has a gymnast background, was in gymnastics for a long time, and he runs a website called GMB. I believe it's Gold Medal Bodies, but GMB is the website, and I ended up buying some of his stuff a long time ago, like 2017, 2016, something to that degree. I remember I was just looking at some stuff, and I was getting older and just like, I just want to be able to move a little bit better. I ended up buying one of his courses, and we ended up one day chatting, and he ended up buying one of my gis that I had for one of my launches. And I was like, is that the GMB guy? Then we started talking, and then from there we kind of became loose friends. And we wanted to have him on the podcast years ago, but he was in Japan. And he's a busy guy, so he doesn't exactly have a lot of time, and the time difference is weird. And now he's living in the States, and so it's a little bit easier. So have him on the podcast. He's another one of these guys where if you go watch his stuff, the guy moves, just watching him move around, and what he can do with his body is really incredible. He makes incredibly difficult movements look effortless. Something that many of us would look at and say, I can't do that if I wanted to. And he could do it with ease, just moving through these positions. And so wanted to have him on the podcast, talk about that. And also he's an older guy with kids, with a business, busy, and, kind of getting some ideas from there. And so there's some good nuggets in there, and hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast and get something from it. Big thanks to our sponsors. Athletic, ATHLETHC.com is the website, as the URL might imply. It has a little bit of THC. It's microdosed THC mints. And so these are mints where you take them and you're not going to be, going nuts. You're not going to be, loopy, high, super high or anything like that. But they can help support certain mental states, right? So for instance, one of their products is called Flow, and the whole idea is to help get you in a flow state. And for me, I've taken the mints plenty of times, and I tend to find that it's just one of those things where maybe if you're like me, sometimes it's just I need my brain to relax a little bit so I can get into the flow state.
Yeah.
There's I think a lot of us are like this. There's so much going on, right? That if you could just turn down the noise a little bit, sometimes it's you could really get into whatever you're doing, whether that's, jiu-jitsu, whether that's your work, whatever. And I tend to find that seems to be what it does for me. By no means do I get blitzed or high or anything like that. And it's not like it's not like that time that you ate too many special brownies or cookies. It's just a very light feeling, and you can do things. And so they've got a couple different mint flavors. They're all delicious, but the mint sort of concoction flavors, if you will. One is called Flow, one is called Power. It's sort of for training, and then the other one is Rebound, which obviously you could sort of think about as a recovery thing. So if you want to check out any of their products, go to their website at Athletic, ATHLETHC.com. Check out the products they have and try them out and see what you think. The promo code is Chewjitsu10 for 10% off the order. Also, our buddies at Epic Roll been supporting the podcast for a long time. If you guys want to check out their gear, go to their website at epicrollbjj.com. They make a lot of terrific stuff: gis, rash guards, shorts, everything that you could possibly want jiu-jitsu related. They make it. Great designs, good quality stuff, great customer service. What's not to like? And it's funny, I see a lot of you guys when you come visit the gym and turn drop-ins, you'll have the Epic Roll stuff on. I asked the guy the other day, I was like, hey, so you got Epic Roll? He's like, yeah, I was listening to the podcast and got it from you guys, right? And I was like, how was your overall experience? Because I'm always asking people, I want to make sure we're steering them in the right direction. He was great, man. It was awesome, and you ended up buying a bunch more stuff from him. And so appreciate you guys when you do use the code, but also I'm glad that you guys are getting good stuff. But if you want to check them out, epicrollbjj.com is the website. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, thanks to our longtime sponsor, Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is one of the premier CBD companies out there. They're one of the OGs in the space. They make terrific products, third-party tested, so you can ensure the quality of the product, what's on the label is inside the bottle or the gummy or whatever it is that you're doing or using. They have a ton of different products available to you. Everyone now. So there's the CBD products. They have CBN products. The CBN product I think is pretty fantastic as far as helping you get to sleep a little bit better and supporting that whole sleep cycle thing. I find that it tends to be useful for me, especially when we talk about recovery. I don't know about you guys. As I got older, for whatever reason, my sleep quality just got worse. I remember when I was younger, it's I can still do this to some degree. I can sleep anywhere. like I can nap anywhere. Let's say it this way. Like when it comes time to just take a little nap in the midday, I can nap for like 15 minutes and it doesn't matter. I can be in the most uncomfortable position. It doesn't matter. I can nap. Perfectly fine. But sometimes going to sleep, it's like, that's where all of a sudden it's like, I'm getting ready to go to sleep. And then my mind's like, not today, like, and then your, thoughts are racing, stuff's going on. And I tend to find that, that doesn't happen very often, but the CBN gummies tend to be a good assist with all that. They also have a bunch of other products that use functional mushrooms like reishi, lion's mane, and others to assist you with other functions that you might want to get into, whether they be focus, relaxation, whatever it is. If you want to check out their products, go to their website at charlesweb.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, get access to a bunch of additional content, and get some other perks, you can check out the details of all that at our website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up, you'll get a bunch of stuff that we've been building up for the last number of years. And again, there's a bunch of other perks there. And you get it all for a very inexpensive price, less than what your average sort of coffee order might come to if you're getting coffee for you and your partner or something. So patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Also, if you guys want to get my daily email and get access to a free ebook, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get access to my daily email, which again ranges from all sorts of different stuff. Anything that I think might be useful to you also goes into the books. This last week, at the time of recording, this has been like tons of book stuff. I think this morning's book was talking about like some stuff from Kierkegaard. And then when it was talking about like Aristotle and sort of some Socrates stuff in there, just throwing it in stuff I was reading. I was like, this is interesting. Maybe you guys will enjoy this. And of course I can connect it to jiu-jitsu because I think jiu-jitsu you can sort of connect it all because all the same stuff that you sort of deal with in life, it kind of exists on the mats on like on some level. Right. But anyway, if you guys want to get that daily email and then get access to a free ebook that I give away called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which is designed to help you have more focus in your jiu-jitsu, you get it for free at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. With that said, guys, let's get into this podcast with Ryan and talk about his martial arts experience and being a more mobile, flexible, able human.
Chewy was telling me a little bit about you, and he said you've got, I'm interested. So you have some judo experience, some jiu-jitsu experience, and gymnastics. You've done gymnastics.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
how did that start? Like, obviously a lot of the stuff that you do is very physical, your training and all that stuff. How did all you get into this space and gymnastics and kind of eventually to martial arts?
Yeah. So when I was really young, like 5-6 years old, there was a PE coach who just basically changed my life, Mark Folger. And he was at school and he was like, hey, you should come out, try gymnastics. And I was like, gymnastics, what did I know? I was just really young, but anyway, it just looked fun. And so I just went and I tried it and I got hooked. I ended up, doing gymnastics from that age until I was 18 years old. But then when I was 13, got really interested in martial arts. And so originally from Wichita, Kansas, and there wasn't a whole lot of options here. And so there was like judo and aikido. And my martial arts instructor had lived in Japan for a really long time. Was very influential in me getting interested in the Japanese culture. So then, I ended up going to a year of college. I go to college. And I'm just really interested in martial arts. Turn 18, I'm done with gymnastics. I actually got injured. I injured my knee. And continued with my martial art. Wanted to do an exchange program in Japan, became an exchange student, was only supposed to be there for a semester. My martial arts instructor at that time took a liking to me, ended up moving in with his family, becoming an uchideshi, which is a live-in student. And did that for a year, came back to the States to finish up a semester of school, got a job immediately after school, went back to Japan. 1 year turned into 28 years. And so I ended up working at a martial arts complex within a shrine in Osaka, Japan, interpreter, translator, just doing martial arts the entire time. I got my 4 black belts during that time. So black belts in Kendo, Iaido, Shorinji Kempo, Judo, and competed actually with the Osaka Minotoku police team, the civilian team in Judo. And yeah, I mean, did that for a long time. Loved it. Like Judo is my first love. And during that time, what it was, though, it was really interesting because I was just getting smashed every day. I mean, I was the only white dude. I was the only non-Japanese around. And I would just show up in practice and they would just literally beat the shit out of me. I loved it. I loved it. And me, stubborn, but also want to be good at what I'm doing. And so I just kept going back and, learn the language, learn the culture. And the thing of it, though, was in order to get better, I knew I needed to focus more on outside of my practice training in order to make sure that I could literally show up for all these martial arts classes that I was participating in. Because again, it wasn't just judo, because I was working at that martial arts complex for 8 years and I was participating in the class. And so I was doing Aikido, Daitoryu, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, Shorinji Kempo, Karate, Kendo, everything, because they needed translators and interpreters. I loved it, but I was beat up all the time. And so that I really went back and studied the body more, and then took from my gymnastic training of all those years of how could I move better off the mat so that I can move better on the mat. And of course, strength played a huge part of it. I was lifting on top of that as well. But, the big thing for me was just getting on the mat with these just incredible guys. And real quick story. I remember, so you had to be a black belt. And so there's a castle, and it's Osaka Castle. And inside of the castle grounds, they've got a martial arts complex called the Shudokan. And you had to be a black belt in order to participate in this particular practice. And I remember going there. It was the very first time. And I couldn't believe it because of the sheer number of people on the mats. And again, all black belts. And I was like one of the only non-Japanese. And I remember I had no idea what I was doing, because I was just like, even though I had trained and, got my black belt and stuff, it was just a whole different world because the people were just, you never knew who was going to show up there. And you had Korean Olympic team would show up sometimes, and Akiyama, who was a former Olympian and stuff, he would show up. And so I just remember, though, that I would get on the mat and they would literally kick the crap out of me, but I just kept showing up. And it was just ended up making friends, just because of that. But the thing of it was, it was just weird. And I just bring this up because thankfully, with my gymnastics background, with the other martial arts stuff that I was doing, it allowed me to continue to do it in a way that I could keep going, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so, that kind of led, of course, to what I do now with GMB Fitness and things like that. I'm a small guy. And so my big thing was, I can try and put on as much weight as possible to try and keep up with these guys. But in my case, it was more about, resilient. What kind of resilient body can I build? And so I competed at my weight class, which at the time was 65 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds. It's pretty light. It was I think it was 156. Does that sound right?
It's 2.2, whatever that is.
It's 660 something. It's probably going to be closer, in the upper 120s and 130s.
Yeah, probably 130s, 135 maybe.
I've got a calculator.
Yeah, that sounds pretty low. But yeah, anyway, so I wasn't a big dude, but I ended up also doing the open weight. So I would do open weight. And so my competitors, the guys I compete against, were all
140s.
Freaking huge.
140s, yeah.
But I was a little dude. But now, I weigh a lot more. Feel a lot.
What do you weigh now?
So right now I'm sitting at around 170 is what I am. Yeah. So put on some muscle, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, my experience has really just been all about movement-based stuff my entire life. And because I wanted to get so much better at it, I went back and studied it, when I was working at the martial arts complex. And that's really what got me into what I'm doing today. So kind of a long story there, but basically, my whole life has just either been gymnastic, movement related or martial arts. It's all I care to do.
That's super cool. Was there, like, when you were there in these different martial arts studios, like especially judo and stuff, was there any, like, because I'm curious about like the culture and stuff when you're there, was there any, like, let's say if you go and you're getting ready to do, like, randori with a guy, does the Japanese guy look at you and go, oh, it's the white guy, we're gonna go a little harder, or do they just go?
It's 100%. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but basically that's what it was. And especially in judo, with the fact, I mean, it's not the national sport, but I mean, it's where it comes from, right?
Right.
So
it originates from them,
Oh yeah. And so there was not a single time where, I mean, well, until I kind of rose up a little bit in rank, and I had my training partners and stuff, and then people would relax and we would really help each other to get better. But basically I would be going to these open mats every week.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, like I said, when you went to the Shudokan, which is, you never know who's going to be coming, because there's people from all over the city and all over wherever. And it's just basically like you get on there and it's just a scrap. And it was great. It was fun. I will say the most interesting randori sparring I've ever seen was between a police officer and the Japanese mafia called the Yakuza. And dude, I tell you what, they just went at it, man, because there's no way they wanted to lose. But in my terms, though, it was, I think, again, I'm an intense guy, but I'm pretty chill. And the thing is I'm always trying to be respectful. So this was a huge thing. And I think it really opened up all the doors that were opened up to me, was the fact that I would get on the mat, and no matter what happened, I was always, thank you so much. I, appreciate it. And that was it. Even if I was like, motherfucker, it was still, though, that was the thing. And because that's what my instructors would teach me. They were just like, you get on the mat, you do the best you can, even if somebody's being a total dick, you make sure, you don't get hurt, of course. But the thing is that's their thing. And this has actually helped me a lot in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to be perfectly honest, because I've been lucky in my job that I, pretty much every month before COVID, when I was still living in Japan, I would travel to a different country to teach GMB. And I would always, and this is when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like pretty much that was my primary thing. And I would always first, call the place, say, hey, listen, I'm going to be in town. Is it okay if I drop in and do a class and stuff like that? And of course, it reminded me of those days when I first was starting off in judo and stuff, where I was the white dude or the non-Japanese guy. And it was just basically like, all right, let's see what this guy has, but this is our house, So I knew it was always going to be a hard role, but whatever, that's totally cool. And I think that mentality allowed me to go to different places and train and still be like, these aren't the kind of guys that I would maybe want to like join on a monthly basis, but it's still cool, and I'm a little different now. I'm 52. And so it's not that I'm like super particular about who I roll with. It's just that if there is somebody who is being stupid, I don't let them be stupid. And that's it. And I'm not saying I'm really great or anything like that. It's just that I know how to protect myself pretty well in terms of that,
No, and I mean, as you get older, you do have to be more protective with yourself, even no matter what you do. Like, as like I was watching my son yesterday, and we're outside playing, and he like slipped and his knee like twisted in a way that I was like, it would have shredded mine, but he just gets back up and he's fine, And then as we get older, no matter what we do, our body just can't take the punishment that it once did. And so as you get older, you definitely have to be more cautious. Like, we had a bunch of visitors in this morning. Like, I had like 20 randomly, like 15 drop-ins.
Holy crap.
Like, it was a bunch of different groups that were in Louisville for different reasons.
Gotcha.
And so we had a great session. A lot of them had a ton of experience. And a lot of times when I roll with new people, I'll kind of like, especially, when they're there, we get visitors all the time. I'll let them move first. Let me see what kind of pace they're going at. Okay, there we go. And I'll kind of match with them so we get in a good flow. But like, there's some times where I'll roll with a guy and I'm like, I can feel that rigidity, that tenseness. I'm like, okay, we're going to roll, but I'm going to keep this contained to some other positions because I want to make sure that like I don't end up in some weird spot where you hurt me, what accidentally most of the time. But so we're going to keep these in, contained in some certain positions. So you just got to be smart about it as you get older.
Well, that's what actually happened to me. So I moved to the United States about 2.5 years ago, and checked out the different BJJ places here. Great guys. I mean, every place I went, like really cool dudes. But it was one of those things where there was a drop-in visitor to this one place, and I'm a brown belt now. So, and I actually looked this up. I had to figure this out. So I've been doing BJJ now for 9 years, and I just forgot. And so that's why I looked it up yesterday. And so I'm a brown belt, right? And there was another brown belt that came as a visitor. And so the instructor there was like, hey, Ryan, you should go with Ryan and blah, blah, blah. The dude, I'm sure he's a brown belt where he was, but the thing is, it was like the dude had no control, and we were literally warming up drilling, and he fell and basically banana split me and tore my groin. I tore my groin, and I was out for 6 months. And
it's a bad injury.
Yeah. And the thing is like you said, a lot of times it's accidents, but the other thing though, that was on me. I should have been more careful. And so that's how I look at things. And so, both sides of the coin in terms of responsibility, if you will. But since then, though, it's pretty interesting because with, the instructor there and some of the other black belts that are there, they were just like, Ryan, why don't you just have your own group? Because I actually live outside of Wichita where I am right now. And so last year, I ended up just starting my own group. It's called the Jiu Guy. And honestly, it's really, I just call it Judo, but it's basically it's Judo with a focus on the ground. And so, it's my background with Judo, but we love the groundwork stuff. And so I've got a great group of people that are training with us. And my number one thing is don't be an idiot. That's it. Just don't be an idiot. And so a lot of the people are a little bit older, their 40s and whatnot. And so it's kind of like one of those things where maybe they wanted to do Judo before, but they're like, it's pretty hard on the body. So how can you continue to train and do it in a way where you're not going to get so beat up? But again, with a focus on as soon as it goes to the ground, you don't stop, stand up, you keep going, and do it in a way that's enjoyable so that you can literally do it for the rest of your life. And so again, that's with GMB, that's what I'm doing, right? So it's basically my martial art and GMB, that's the same. So
I'm curious about this because obviously I was a customer of GMB before I even talked to you in person.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, with the GMB stuff, how did that come about? Right.
Yeah,
like an online business. I'm sure maybe maybe it started off as seminars in person and then it grew into this thing, whatever. But as someone that does things online from a business side, I'm curious, how did the GMB online business that you have now, where make these courses, do all this stuff, how did that come about?
Yeah, man. So I was actually involved with the different fitness organization before GMB. So, and that fitness organization is located here in the United States. And originally it was also martial art related. And I was actually using that to help me in my martial arts. But I ended up moving through the ranks and I ended up becoming their chief program designer. So I designed all the programs for them. And I met Jarlo, my business partner, one of my business partners in that organization. And then my other business partner, Andy, he was actually a client of mine when I opened up my studio in Japan. The way it came about though was, the guy who was running this fitness organization was like, hey man, you should be teaching your own thing. And that's kind of how it came about, because I had different ideas, if you will, about certain things. Not that they were better or anything, they were just different. And so, my main thing was, okay, how can I help people to be able to do the things that they want to do in a way that's not taken away from them to be able to do that thing? And what I'm getting at is basically like, as we're getting older, our priorities change. Spending a lot of time in the gym, thinking that things have to be done this way, can sometimes get in the way of you actually being better at your activity. So the way it came about was basically Jarla was like, hey, you should be teaching that shit. Literally, that's where it started. And it just started off like, all right, well, let's try, and I'll put a little something out and see how it goes. I couldn't market for shit. I didn't know anything about business and whatever. And Andy, actually, he was my client, as I mentioned, just brilliant when it comes to marketing. And we actually created a product for that former fitness organization in order to help people prepare for certification. And it was all online. So our actual, before GMB, we had this, again, online thing, because I was the guy who was going and helping out, teaching these seminars and things, and people just weren't prepared. They would show up, and it was like, how can we teach people if they don't know what the hell they're doing? So that's why I created this. I think it was like an 8-week course or something like that. And it took them through it so that they're prepared for the seminar. And then this fitness organization was like, hey, that's going so well, we're going to take that over and take all the money. And I was like, you can eat a dick. So, but then it was just kind of like one of those things where, okay, let's just put out a product and see how it goes. Literally, that's what it was. And our business model was this: let's create cool shit. Literally, that's what it was. And we just tried it. And our first official GMB product was called Rings One. And, it was gymnastic rings. And I was using the rings actually with my gymnastic background, but I was using them in a different way. I was using it because I had my shoulder completely torn out, slap tear, during a judo competition. And that ended my judo career, if you will. And once my rehab was done and everything, I was using gymnastic rings to get my strength and as well as mobility back. And that actually was when Jarlo and Andy were like, we should do a program. I'm like, okay. And we did it. And I shot everything on a freaking VHS in the park. And it was one of the first.
What time frame is this?
Dude, we're talking like 17, 18 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. So you
were out there in like the early pioneer online, like
one of the
first guys out there.
Companies. Yeah, we were one of the first online fitness companies. Wow. And there was one other company, and they're still around. I don't like to talk about them, but
it's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just us, and we did that, and it was full on. And I remember Andy was over at my house. We were having a barbecue, we were having a party, and there was like a bunch of people. This is Japan. And we had put the product out, and we're just like, let's see how it goes. And I remember Andy was at my house, and he went upstairs to check my computer to see if we made any sales. And he came down, and he's like, dude, you got to freaking check this out. And we were just like, what the shit? And like, we're like, this might work. Yeah. And but again, there was a need. There was nothing else out there. It was different from what other people were doing. But then what we did is we started moving forward and actually going, okay, we need a method. And that's where we really hunkered down. And Andy, with his background in education, my background in coaching and program design, Jarlo is a physical therapist. The three of us got together and we're just like, okay, how can we truly, truly help people and make it more about what they need instead of just being like, here's a program, just do it. Yeah. So now that's where we're really, really focused on, which is our core principle, if you will, where really it's just about, like I said, your capability. And so that I want to help you to become a more capable version of yourself. So it's not about turning you into like a better fitnesser. It's like, okay, Chewy, how can I help you so that you can be better at your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Period. That's it. It's not about doing more conditioning or anything. It's literally looking at the three things that are going to help you. The three things. And it's force, it's range, and it's skill. Those are it. And a lot of people look at it like they simplified it like, okay, strength, mobility, control. Okay, great. But let's actually take a step deeper. a couple of steps deeper and look at like, what is force, right? And force isn't necessarily just about strength, but it's looking at like your capacity to generate that strength and that power across different positions and tasks, which is very important because, in GMB, of course, we're not like just martial art. The three of us are martial artists, but the thing of it is we're looking at, maybe a person wants to do paddleboard or stand-up paddling or just freaking play with their kids. So what is the task that they need to be able to use force for? And then range, of course, is then taking that ability to access and control a full functional range of motion. So for example, let's say that, bringing it back to BJJ, it's like, all right, you don't need to have the middle splits. Okay. But you do need to have a certain range of motion if you get put in a compromised position so that you don't hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. So what is that range of motion for you? And this is why, like in our programs, why we're not like, okay, your goal is to be able to do the front splits or whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's literally like, what do you need in terms of range? And then the other thing that we're looking at is like, let's say that you've got good force, output, mixture of that strength and that power. You've also got good range. Okay. But what if you're still clunky? So what if you get on the mats and even though you're a big, strong dude and you're flexible, but you don't have any coordination? Okay. Well, then you got to focus on skill. And this makes sense for us, obviously, because if you're learning like a new skill, obviously you're not going to be good at it in the beginning. But what we're talking about here is like, you got to be able to coordinate, which is kind of funny. You remember that Eddie Murphy movie where his dad's got that mushroom jacket? You got to coordinate. Maybe you guys, you're too young for that. Anyway.
No, I've seen a lot of his movies. Which movie is that?
I'm sorry, I can't remember which one it was, but that just came to mind. But anyway, but yeah, it's like we're looking at like coordination, we're looking at like balance, we're looking at transition from movement to movement, basically like adaptation across movement patterns is really what it's after. And so this is the thing in GMB where we really wanted to focus on this method because it's unfortunately sometimes lacking out there. And so this is why it's actually difficult to explain what GMB is, because it's not like, hey, buy this program and you're going to get jacked. Buy this program, you're going to get six-pack abs. I'm going to be honest, no. Both of those, I mean, yeah, if you're doing cocaine while you're doing a program, you might be able to get fully ripped. Okay, but
shed off the weight.
Yeah, shed that weight, baby. But the thing again, I'm just, my passion in life, what I'm after is like, hey, what do you need? All right, cool. Let's help you to do that. Mm-hmm. And if you lift weights, great. Keep lifting weights. But what is lacking so that I can help you to do a little bit of that, that's going to help with your weightlifting, help with your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, help with karate, judo, whatever the heck you're doing. I'm not trying to tell anybody to stop doing what they're doing. If anything, I want to help them to be able to do or be better at that thing. So we completely revamping GMB at the moment right now as well, and really honing in on our message and making sure that people understand what we're about. And again, looking at that force, that range and the skill, instead of just saying strength, mobility, and control, because that can also be very confusing to people.
What are you looking for as far as movement patterns for a typical jiu-jitsu athlete? I mean, it's going to be dependent probably on them in some capacity, but is there maybe something, let's maybe break it down this way. Somebody that's younger versus maybe somebody that's older.
Absolutely.
That's a practitioner. Let's talk about that. How are you assessing that and like finding what they need?
For me, it's actually pretty easy in the sense that if you just look at the major parts of the body, neck, shoulders, hips, really those three things, because in especially grappling arts, you're going to be stacked. You're going to have people cranking on your shoulders, your arms. You're going to be twisting and turning and put in these compromised positions. So again, when we're looking at things, what I'm trying to do is say, okay, yes, you got to have that force, but typically the majority of people are strong enough. Okay. Strong enough in the beginning. What they're lacking is that range of motion in the transitions and being able to use their body when someone else is loaded on top of them. And so this is why I always like to say the better you move off the mat, the better you're going to move on the mat. Because the third part of skill is learning how to take those positions and transition out of there. So there's a other thing that I talk about, but a little bit different. Posture, breath, mindset.
Mhm.
And so this is how I look at our martial arts for everything is you control your posture so that you can maintain your breath and keep a positive mindset so that you can break your opponent's posture, take their breath, and put them down that downward performance spiral mentally. That's all we're trying to do is do that. So therefore, the better your range of motion is, and the better your skill and force, the quicker you can get back into a better posture to regain your breath and get in that positive mindset to crush them. So if we're looking at a beginner there, they're not going to be thinking about all that stuff. It's just basically going to be as a beginner, oh shit, I have no idea what's going on, but how can you not get hurt? You can make sure that you're taking care of your shoulders, your neck, and your hips. That's it in the very beginning. Now, then we have the in-between thing where you're starting to get good at things and you're still young and you're powerful. You still have that force. Okay. You're starting to get skill, blue, purple, whatever. You're starting to get there. Thing of it is, though, is during that time, it's a matter of focusing maybe more on skill. And by skill, I'm not talking about just the techniques. I'm talking about like anything as you're moving up in ranks. What is it? Taking those movements and chaining them together and smoothing things out. So it's the exact same thing with your body as well. And when we get older, those things completely change in the sense that you start to realize that your range of motion is decreasing rapidly. One, due to the fact you're getting old, but also probably because you've been crushed for so many years, you've got so many aches and pains that you need to address those particular parts in your body. As we get older, isometric strength actually still retains. So that's old man strength, right?
Yeah.
So when we're looking at frames, if we're framing on somebody, if we're using our full body, we know how to do that better. And we continue to hold on to that isometric strength. So then what do we need to look at? More focus on the range of motion, but also making sure that we keep our techniques, our skills honed and continue moving so that we don't lose that. So first off, can you squat down to the ground? I know it sounds silly. It's like, most people.
No, it's not silly. I think like a lot of people,
You know?
if you get them to say, can you drop a squat? And many people like they can't just drop into a good squat, or they can't do it without like several bits of
Holding
like
on to
warming
something.
up or something. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so what I'm really looking at across the board, it doesn't matter if you're young, middle-aged, old, can you squat down? Can you get down, lie prone on the ground without using your hands? And can you get back up? Okay. This is just the test of longevity, and that's it. I mean, but the thing of it is, the majority of people in Asia and Japan can do that. A lot of people over here can't. And that surprised the crap out of me. I had forgotten about that. And it was like, there's some black belts that I would roll with. And their technique is really great, but they move for shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was funny because when they found out who I was, they'd be like, hey, you think you could help me with this? I'm like, sure. And it was funny because right away, their game started to change after a couple months once they started to regain particular positions, because they were just like, holy crap, I've never been able to do this before, but now that I can, it's, allowed me to start training these other movements, if that makes sense, So that's the biggest thing for me, is really like being able to get down to the ground and back up. But then, and another way of looking at that is then start doing this using transitions. So where you're prone, supine, starting to move backwards. I mean, I'm not talking just like shrimping and stuff like that. I'm talking about actually like thinking about, do you have the spatial awareness as well as the capability to be able to move your body in different ranges of motion while in motion? And once you can do that, you can start to load it. Mm-hmm. And that's when things get fun. So I love sandbag training. So we don't teach that in GMB because, again, our big thing is, okay, let's look at these foundational movements, and you have these down, then you can start stacking whatever the hell you want on top of those. But sandbag training for me, I love it so much because kind of, for me, resembles grappling. It's always moving around and you're dealing with like uneven stuff. It's not even all the time when you're doing it. And so little things like that, the better you can get at moving under load in those sorts of ways, I think are great. And as you continue to get old, again, it really just comes back to neck, shoulders, and hips. Of course, you do have the knees, you have the ankles, wrists, elbows, and whatnot, but I'm talking about the major joints there.
Mm-hmm.
If you take care of those, then you should be okay. You really should be okay.
Mm-hmm. What about like, how would you incorporate, what are some movements or some things, like not specifically, obviously somebody can't squat or to the ground. Like, what are you looking at and how are you, what's maybe a way that you're going to teach them to do that?
Yeah. So here's the thing with me. It's don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do, and then just do more of that. So, okay, you might not be able to quote unquote squat down to the ground like I show in a video. But the thing is how can you squat down to the ground? Just because you can't do a movement that someone does perfectly doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it. So for example, use your hands to get down to the ground. Use a chair. Only squat down halfway. Bring your heels up off the ground. Do a lunge step backwards. Like, it sometimes, I don't say upsets me because I don't get upset about anything anymore. It's sad sometimes when you see a fitness video and they think, okay, in order to do a squat, let's do all these supplemental movements.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, why don't you just do the freaking squat, like a variation of it? Okay. I'm like, because you're working on the mechanics of it still. And so it can literally be that simple. So, to give another example, it's just like, I don't know, for example, you're in side control. Oh, I can't hold this person down. Okay. Well, what do you need to do to shift your body in order to start being better at that? It's like a lot of people think it has to be this way, but you need to find what's going to be good for you. So when you find a person who can't squat down, we do have an assessment process that we go through. It's called the AAA framework, where we assess what's going on, we address the issue, and then we apply the necessary protocol to help them to be able to start working on that skill. And again, in this process, of course, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And a GMB trainer who under me, they'll be able to look at a person and go, oh, okay, dorsiflexion of your ankle is bad. We're going to focus on that. But the thing of it is it's not like we're going to take you through a rehab program. We're literally going to have you move around. Mm-hmm. And that moving around is going to help open up things. But as well, it's also going to help with the hips. It's also going to help with the lower back. It's probably also going to help to open up the shoulders. The reason why is this. The body doesn't function part by part. It functions as a whole. And so we need to make sure that we're using movements and taking a look at things that allow us to use and move our body holistically instead of individually. And so this can be really difficult for people because it's really just coming back to, to be honest, fitness is kind of like cosplay now. And in that people are trying to like hit here and, tell you have to do all this other stuff. But the thing of it is, it's just focus on just moving better. And, your body's your interface with reality. So if you can't squat down, but you gotta, but you understand that that's important to you, then just work on being able to do that and start where you are, not where you wish you were. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. It's huge. And we're also really looking at doing something that's going to be sustainable. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to join Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to wipe out. And even though I have a 9-to-5 or a 9-to-6, 8-to-6 job, whatever, and I've got a family of 4, I'm going to train every single day for 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you will for a month.
Yeah.
But is that sustainable? And so what this comes down to, basically everything that I'm saying here, is that practice beats performance. And so when we look at a squat, how do I help a person with a squat? Well, we focus on what they can do first, and then you just practice. And that's all we're about. It's like anything. And all of this also just comes back from my martial arts as well. It's like, how are you going to get better? Okay. Well, it's not just stepping on the mat. I hate it when people say that, because like you can step on the mat and dick around and not get better at all. Okay. But if you step on the mat and you're like, all right, today I'm going to work on improving my squat, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to practice, you're going to get better. Okay. But again, it comes back down to that, assessing what do you need out of that. And, it can be just a matter of, I'm just going to do step back lunges. I do a couple of those, I'll be fine. You don't sometimes need to overthink it. But again, coming back to our programs, this is what we have. We have all of this baked into our programs. Like, that's my thing, is the programming. It's like, start here, start working on this thing. It's going to improve your squat. It's going to improve your range of motion in your shoulders. Your hips are going to feel better. You're going to move better. Okay. And, the big thing we get though is like, am I going to lose my gains because I'm not lifting as much? Okay. And I'm like, well, don't stop lifting. Okay. Just take 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And move around and do this stuff. And we have 3 different levels in our programs where, like, if you literally cannot squat down, you start with this level. And I help you to assess and figure out how to squat down. Now, if you think you can squat down and things are great, you start with this middle level. And a lot of people end up going, oh shit, I thought I could do it, but actually I need to be here, because of the ego, Yeah,
because we always want to do, we want to do the thing. I was making, especially with guys, right? I was making a joke, like one of the guys that was visiting today randomly, of course he was a big meathead fella, from it takes one to know one. But he pulls out this grip machine, right? Like one of the grip measurers.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, after we're done training. So I'm like, man, I'm tired, but whatever. So, but we do it. And of course, with guys, as soon as we're measuring each other or we're measuring ourselves to someone else, measuring ourselves to a video, we see, what do? I've got to be just as good as them or better, right? You just instantly turn it into like this sort of dick measuring contest. And
man,
you just, it's so silly. And like a lot of times, like you said, especially something like that, like you just got to start with where you're at right now, and be okay with that.
It's tough, dude. So again, I'm 52. When I was younger, I'm like, hey Ryan, I bet you can't do this. Well, hold my beer. I mean, I was that guy, and like, I mean, hell, I went to Japan. Okay. So I got in trouble for this. Okay. And the reason I used to go in judo, I would do this when I would go into a new place and we'd drop in, and I would literally choose the biggest dude there to do randori with. Just because like I had a thing to prove. I had a thing to prove, and I would get smashed. But my mentality was, I'll do that. Everybody after that's going to be easy. Okay. They never were, but I mean, that's just how it was. But years ago, a couple of years, I mean, I don't even know how many years ago, I realized I got to this point where people would send me videos, and it was like on the rings or something like that. I'm like, hey Ryan, can you do this? And I remember I'd be like, nope. And that was always my answer from then on. And then it was be like, well, don't you want to try? I was like, no, because I'm cool doing what I'm doing right now. And so that shift in my life, for one, improved my martial arts like crazy. My body felt better, and I also enjoyed my life a lot more. And so I think if a lot of us could look at it that way, and instead just be like, nah, I'm cool, and just focus on what you really need to do, we'd be so much better off. It's always fun to kind of, fun around sometimes, and have these challenges. But again, like if I had learned that younger, oh man, I would feel so much better. I wouldn't have the injuries that I have had over the years. That's for damn sure. So.
Yeah, but it's so hard to learn that, isn't it? Because it's like that feeling of when you have like a deep-seated sense of confidence of where you're at, and that being completely fine, that's good enough. Because like what you're saying is true. Like earlier, if someone's, trying to become a little bit more, they're trying to loosen themselves up so that they can move better on the mats, as an example, it's a cool hat trick if you can do the splits,
Oh yeah,
But
dude.
it's not essential. It's not essential for you to be able to do that in jiu-jitsu. It could help out, of course. It
Yeah.
could give you access to certain techniques, but it's not essential.
Right.
And so if we could like loosen up, certain parts of your body enough that maybe you're getting a few more inches down towards that split, but that's where you stop. That could still be beneficial. I remember when COVID happened, I actually was using one of the programs you had given me to look at. And I remember especially my hips. I came back after, we weren't really closed that long. But came back after doing this stuff for just about a month and a half. And I remember I could bring my knee, like during guard retention, I could bring my knee up higher up towards my chest. And it was like, I wasn't used to that. And it allowed me to have better guard retention, because now it's like, when someone would pass, my knee can now come up here and work as a frame. And now it's by no means like impressive flexibility for, say, a really flexible person. But for me, it was like all of a sudden, like I had access to a new thing. And, again, then you were talking about earlier, well, it's like, well, now I have this new range of motion that's available to me and it's comfortable. Well, let me see what else I can do with it. And I can, use it during my practice and integrate it. Yeah.
And to me, that to me is sexy. Okay. Because you now have opened up the ability to do the other stuff that maybe you were holding back and thought you couldn't do. And so this is really what I'm after. And so when I'm going to be honest, there are days when I wake up, and I'm sure you're the same, where I'm just like, oh my God, like it would be great if I didn't have to do this ever again. You know what I mean? But then you get these messages of people and it's just like, dude, this completely changed my life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, I can actually bring my knee to my chest now. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which on Instagram, all I'm trying to say is, like, on Instagram, it might not look amazing, but to me, that is amazing. And so what I mean by some days I want to quit is when people are like, oh, hey, Ryan, I want to be able to do double weight barbell squat along with, one finger, one arm handstand, a planche, and a front lever, and be able to do it in 1 month. I'm like, okay. But like, just that, what you said, like, that's awesome. And I think if we look at that and look at, a lot of people don't want to hear this, being good enough so that we continue to get better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people miss out on that, because if you can just be good enough consistently, dude, over 1 year, the amount of progress you can make is crazy. Instead of just random, like, whatever, and then you get hurt, and then you got to take time off, and then, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Or not doing anything at all, right? Like, it's
exactly. Yeah.
Going back to that idea, a lot of people, like, we've sort of overcomplicated everything from fitness to diet to, insert whatever. We overcomplicate it. And I think people tend to do this where they try to say, oh no, you've been doing this all wrong. And I had a young gentleman named Tyler who's been training at the gym for a bit, and he's pretty overweight. He's a big fella, right? And obviously on the mats, there's a lot of movements he just simply can't do yet because he just got a lot of weight in the way. So I'm like, we'll get there. We'll make our adjustments or whatever. But I was talking to him and he's like, well, what can I do? I'm like, well, you can start lifting weights because we have a weight room. And I was like, man, why don't you just get up every morning and just start go for a walk?
Yes.
Go for a walk. Just get moving a little bit. Just get started, right? Because it's just like you can always do a little bit. And yeah, like you won't do that cool like workout like that influencer, right? That's like whatever. But like you go for a walk every single day and like doing that, and then you start like lifting a little bit, and it's nothing crazy, just a little bit of lifting. Like in a year from now, like you'll be a different person, And so it's like you can, like you said, it goes back to like the idea of like, well, what can you do? Can't do this, can't do that, but you can do something. And if you focus on that little piece, you can always build on it because you're taking action forward. You got momentum behind you.
Yeah. I like to say, make it so easy, it would be stupid not to do it.
I like that.
And when you do that, like you just said, you can then start to build on it. Mm-hmm. So it's like those people who come to me and like, hey, I got this challenge. I'm going to do 100 push-ups a day. No, you're not. You might start off doing it. Mm-hmm. Okay. But the thing is, there's going to be a day that's going to come up where you might not be able to do it. Then what? You're going to feel bad because you didn't do it, all this other stuff. But I'm like, if you make it so simple and you're like, you're going to do 5 push-ups a day, but you reframe it, at least 5 push-ups a day. Cool.
Mhm.
You can do 100 if you want, but
Yeah.
your goal was 5. So you at least, get up there and you do it. So that's just been a big thing with me. And it also goes back to one of my judo instructors. I remember this because, I was training, I'm sure you guys were the same, 2 days, 2 times a day. And then I was lifting on top of that and doing all this other stuff. And there's these days where you go in there, you're just like, I'm so tired. And I remember asking my judo instructor when I was getting there, I was like, so what kind of practice is it going to be? And he told me, he's like, whatever practice you decide it's going to be. And I was just like, okay, cool. And so this is also why in GMB, the big thing with us is just always step on the mat and at least start your warm up. That's it. That's it. I'm not saying that you should like crush your workouts, finish your work, whatever, but just step on the mat, start the warm up. Typically, whatever happens is going to be what you need that day. But if you make it so easy to do, make it so easy, it would be stupid not to do it. You're going to see change. Just like you said, go for a walk, just, yeah.
What's like your intention now? Like before was, to find the biggest dude and see if you can throw him. What's your intention now with training? Like, how are you trying to still grow as a martial artist and also just in general?
Yeah. So I actually don't have an instructor right now, which is interesting. I am branching out a little. So there's a place called Tritech Martial Arts, which, Matt, great guy. And I like him because he's very into combatives and stuff, which is fun. And so I'll do a little bit of that. But coming back to the judo side of things, right now, my sole goal is to get on the mat as much as possible and do it in a way that is mutually benefit. It's benefiting all parties. And so this is why, for example, I don't charge money when I teach. And a lot of people are like, what? Why aren't you, getting money for all this? The reason why is in my business in GMB, I'm doing okay. And I look at right now what I'm doing as me giving back to the martial art that has helped me completely change my life. And along those lines, so again, for me, it's not winning at all. It's I get on the mat and I want to be able to move as well as I possibly can and help that other person to also move as well as they can. That's all I care about right now. Like my son is in my classes now. And it was great because like he's a wrestler and he's getting good, but he loves putting on the gi and doing the judo with me right now. So even after class, we did a 2-hour class yesterday and we were, sparring, doing it on Doherty and everything. Everybody's huffing and puffing. After class, everybody leaves and he's like, hey, Dad, can we go some more? I'm like, yeah, we went for another hour. And the thing of it is like, to me, it's more about giving back, if you will, rather than trying to be the best. And I think also like once you get a little older, it's not that I'm trying to say that I know everything because I don't. It's that I want to try and bring people up in a way where it's mutually beneficial to all parties. And unfortunately, I'm just going to throw this out here. It's just my personal opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. But I found that moving back to the United States, the culture tends to be all about me, me, me. And I've had a really difficult time with that because I lived in Japan over half of my life. And I moved back to the United States. And it was basically like, who are you? This is what I do. Fuck off. That's kind of like a lot of the places I felt. And nice people. I'm not saying, but the attitude is different. It's the alpha. It's I'm tougher than you. I can spar harder than you or whatever. Okay. And the one thing that I really missed, and this is actually a big reason why I started this group, because I remember whenever I would do randori, spar with these really high level the judo guys, it was only 5 minutes. And those first 3-4 minutes was just me getting crushed pretty much every single high level guy that you would go with, the last minute is them basically letting you through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't find that in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu hardly at all. And so that is, to be honest, where I think I learned the most, is because they just basically were like, hey, it's your turn now, if that makes sense. They didn't make it easy for you at all. They made you work for that throw, work for that pin. But it was like, holy crap, you really were like, okay, I'm getting some reps in here. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm sure it exists in other places, okay? But the majority of the times that I've been in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's just basically been like, who's going to win this round, you know? And I think that's beneficial. I think it's really beneficial. But I also like that there's different levels of sparring as well. Where, for example, and I'm bringing it just back to judo because it exists in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's way, but they have names for this in Japanese, you know, kakari geiko or yakusoku geiko. But basically, it's like 1-for-1. And I really like that because you can go pretty hard. Situational sparring, you know, you decide, you play games, who's going to do this and stuff like that. And now I know that ecological is like coming up and everything. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. But like, it's like in judo, though, it's always been like that mutual, you know, benefit for everybody involved. And so this right now with my son, I'm bringing it back to my son, is I want him to be as strong as possible, but I also want him to understand that the only way to get better is to help other people and make that person really good as well. And you do that, you also just rise with the tide. And so again, long chat, it's just my opinion, but I'm really trying to give back, if you will, and not saying that I'm like some great martial artist or anything. It's just that the majority of the people that are training with me right now have gone to different places, gotten hurt, and come to me because they're like, holy crap, this training is really hard, but I'm going to do it in a way that's, one, going to be really respectful of your level, your body, but also push you in a way that I want to make you get better while I'm also getting better. So yeah,
it's unfortunate. There's a lot of good stuff that comes to the jiu-jitsu gyms and stuff like that. And then sometimes you get into gyms with like weird cultures where, like you said, it just, you know, people go in there and instead of it using it as a thing, sort of a thought process of we're all going to kind of grow together with this. It's just, I'm going to get mine, feed my ego a little bit, feel good about myself, that kind of thing. And I think it's, you know, it's one of the things that Eugene, I think is neat about the gym, you know, that we have, where it's like, I mean, I was doing this today, like, you had a bunch of new guys coming into the bunch of drop-ins. And so, you know, a lot of times I rarely submit random people that come in because I'm like, we're going to move. Like, I feel like the guys that I go the absolute hardest are the guys that are really skilled, that we're basically pushing each other. And I know that we can take it. Whereas when it's the guy that are below me, it's like, a lot of times it's like, okay, maybe I'm working a guard pass. I'll pass their guard. I'll give them a little space, and I'll even let them sometimes, as long as the technique's good, get them a sweep. And then after they sweep me, it's like, okay, now I'm going to work my way back to my guard passing position. And they get to work. I get to work. It's not a complete smash fest for me. And to me, it's like a lot of times that's a more fun round. And honestly, I remember years ago going to a competition when I was a new black belt. I'm training with basically nothing but blue belts. And rolling in that way where instead of simply smashing, I'm just trying to move with them continuously. I developed this ability to transition through things very fast. And I remember rolling with the black belt, and he was surprised at my ability to transition from thing to thing to thing. And I was like, oh, well, maybe there's something to this. Instead of smashing people, you use people as you get a thing, you can work with them at a lesser level, focus on certain aspects, be very deliberate. You give them a chance to move, they get to work, they have a good time, and you get something out of it. It's a win-win, right?
I could totally see you in that regard. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist, because
no, of course, I'm just sharing with you because I've been at gyms before, like you said.
Yeah,
I've totally been at gyms where it's like you walk in and it's like, buckle up, because there's no it's not fun. It's like, oh, we're going 1000% off the rip. I don't know you, we've never trained together, and you're gonna try to rip my face off. Cool, whatever. Let's rock and roll. All right.
Yeah, man. No, and you know, again, again, with me traveling, you know, around the world and stuff, a lot of times it is because I was a new guy, of course. But it was really interesting at how many different places I've been where they're like, hey, we're a competition gym and that's how we train. And I'm like, okay, cool. But to me, competition gym doesn't mean that you go, you know, balls to the wall all the time. That's just my own opinion, whatever, take it for what you will. But like what you just said, though, I think that that's how I've always liked to train as well. And so like with my son, I'm like giving him so much stuff all the time because it's only going to make me better and force me, you know, to figure that stuff out as well. And so I don't know. I like training that way. And again, that was something that over the years, I just had the pleasure of having some really good instructors, you know, similar to you, what you were just talking about, where they've made me work, but it also helped them as well. I know Hodger Gracie used to talk about that all the time, how, you know, he would train with, you know, was it white belts, blue belts and stuff, because that's all the only people he had around. So, but yeah, again, right now, all I'm trying to do is just stay on the mat forever. Literally, that's it. And that's actually I have a little passion project. It's called Stay on the Mat Forever. And I write, you know, blog posts over there about, you know, training for longevity and that sort of thing. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's important because you want to be like Chewy talked about too, like being on the mats. We've talked about this all the time, just trying to, you know, stay on the mats till we're 80 or till we, you know, till we walk off and kick the bucket, right?
Man. Absolutely.
And I think it's possible in some capacity, but I think you can't.
I do too.
You have to be consistent about like finding the right intensity and frequency for your training and all. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it kind of goes back to the idea that you mentioned earlier, right? At some point, you're not going to be able to do certain hard rounds, but what can you do? Right?
That's it, man.
You can do something. You can move, you can drill, you can flow, you can do something, but maybe you can't do this. Well, that's okay. This maybe isn't on the table for us anymore, but we can do all this other stuff.
Yeah, man. I remember, so there was another place I used to go to train judo every once in a while. It's just really cool because so there's a really famous university in Japan called Tindi University, and they're really well known for the groundwork. And I remember that we would go, but there would be these older instructors, and we're talking like 70s, 80s, and they would focus more on groundwork, and it was really cool, you know? And so it's like they were adapting and working on the things that they needed to do in order to do that. And I just thought that was so cool. And that was really inspiring to see them, even though they're still on the mats, you know, and they wouldn't take a whole lot of throws, but the way that they would throw each other too changed, which I thought was really cool. It wasn't very, you know, high throws, very low. It's more like a takedown rather than a throw. And I don't know, that just played a real, you know, pivotal part in me looking at understanding that there are different levels within everything. And yeah, I just want to stay on the mat forever, man. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't train. I don't know. And
yeah, I think you can always, I just think with jiu-jitsu, there's a capacity to where you can train. I mean, that's why we have these, the unique thing even about jiu-jitsu that I love is that, you know, you're able to do jiu-jitsu. You know, you have masters 7, 8, whatever it is. You have all these levels. So you can actually find somebody that's going to be at the same size and same skill set and same age and ability level, essentially. And so it's like, and you have that understanding, like, oh, we're kind of like, it's going to be a challenging round, but we, you know, somebody's got the same capabilities for the most part as you do. And I think that allows, I think it's one of the unique things because you don't see that a lot. You don't have like a senior NBA, you know, you don't have a 15 over basketball league, right? You just don't. But you have, but you have that. You have world championships for older grapplers. I mean, you have a lot of things you can still accomplish. And I think having that too, something if you want to accomplish, you want to be at that high level as an older grappler, you can still do that in some way. I think that's great. Intention, give somebody intention, something, a goal for training too, not just to be, I mean, being on the mats is ideal. That's what we want. But if somebody wants a little more, they have the capacity to do that too.
Absolutely, dude. Wrestling, unfortunately, you don't see that. So, you know, just thinking about that because you brought that up, you don't really see that too much. So, yeah.
Well, I think jiu-jitsu's, I mean, wrestling's kind of tough.
Wrestling they do have some older divisions, but they do. Yeah. Like, I think it was like, just like the other day, Lovato posted a video of him like winning. It was like their older division, like one of their older division tournaments. They just don't get the thing about wrestling is the pool is smaller, right? Because
Gotcha. Sure.
you know what I mean? Because you think about like people get into wrestling, they're young, that's what they're focused
Yeah.
on. They're focused on this, that, whatever, and then they typically retire out.
Right.
Whereas like, you know what I mean? Because it's like they went really hard when they were young and then they're like, I'm done. Whereas now you're getting more people into grappling at an older age. Like even several of my guys at the gym will go to this, like one of the local colleges, they got a wrestling club.
Yep.
Okay.
And they have got into wrestling, like their kids got into it and they got into wrestling, kind of like jiu-jitsu, where someone gets into it, you know, at a later stage. And so then you're getting more of these older people that are randomly getting into wrestling at the spry age of like mid-30s or whatever.
So cool.
You know what I mean?
Cool.
And so they're
Yeah.
getting into it. And so now you're starting to see these people who, because, you know, I think that no matter what, there's we all got a certain amount of tread on our tires.
Yeah.
And if you burn the tread out when you're young, hey, it's burned out. It is what it is. Right. You know, that tread is both of a mental and a physical thing. Right.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Because maybe you have it physically, but you're like mentally, I don't want to go through this again. But then there's on the other end where it's like you have these people that are like, you know, mid-30s, they've never competed in this kind of sport and they've got plenty of tread on their tires, so to speak. So now you're starting to have, I think, more of these older tournaments or older guy tournaments, just like they are in jiu-jitsu, where you have a whole market of older guys who, you know, want to be a little competitive. They want to get after it a little bit. And so you're starting to see it a little bit more.
Well, you do see that in judo as well. Like when I was over there, it was really interesting because I competed until I don't even remember. I think I was about 35 or something when I was really competing like every weekend sort of thing. And you would have guys who would just join like a year ago or something like that, you know, and they're around my age and older, which that was interesting. But that's great to hear about wrestling. I just didn't even know. That's so cool. Yeah.
I think wrestling, in my opinion, I think wrestling's harder on your body just because of the rules.
Oh, sure.
There's really very, you know, you take the person down, pin them. There's really like, you have very simple positions, you know, top, bottom kind of thing. You want to be on bottom. And I think in jiu-jitsu there's a lot more variety and
absolutely
rules.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different rule sets for wrestling too. That some are a little bit more.
Well, the fact that I can sit on my back, I can sit down on my butt,
you can sit down,
I can play
or start down.
I can start down, right? Like that.
Want,
that allows for like, you know, you have more options to get into.
Well, and I would say, and this is not fact, but in my opinion, I think more. I don't know. This is probably not the best. I don't know if this is the best idea, but I think more injuries will happen from that standing position.
Absolutely.
Like, I just think there's a lot more variability.
Well, especially if people are untrained.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, the problem with jiu-jitsu is they don't train stand up much.
Yeah.
And then they get into a takedown battle. And then like, let's say that you get thrown and you don't know to just go with it. Like this morning, I got thrown by one of our young college wrestlers, right? I shot in, got a hold of his hips, and then he launches me. Now, when he threw me, he didn't stick the landing super hard, which is great. And then I like just went with it to go with it to take away the power. But when you see people get hurt a lot of times is they resist, they try to tense up and they boom, they fall like a sack of rocks and they jack their neck up, their back, whatever. And so I think it's like, you know, just like anywhere else, like you throw a guy in on the mats and say, all right, man, full roll. And he's never done a full roll before and he gets caught in a plata and some guy rips his shoulder. It's like just a lot of times lack of education, lack of training.
I remember my first tournament and thinking about it, I don't think I even knew a takedown.
Yeah.
I did a jiu-jitsu tournament as a white belt and I was like, I don't even think I have a takedown, or I don't remember that I had one because I didn't know what the hell to do once I grabbed on. I just remember that. Like I did not have
pull and rip, baby.
I just hope we end up on the ground in some way and we'll go from there, right? And it's such a silly thing, but like that's probably one of the first things you should probably, you know, develop some kind of takedown.
Yeah, and this is what the way I teach. To be honest, it's like we don't do any stand-up sparring until you know how to roll and take falls, and not even just that, but you know, not to what you just said, Chewy, is intense brace as you're going. You know, so. We had a guy, we were on the ground. This is crazy, but it was only like his, I don't know, 4th class or something like that. And we were working on a simple sweep throw. And the dude and he was literally just supposed to roll out of it, braced, fell into his shoulder, dislocated his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, dude, and he knew right away. He's like, oh, I did exactly what you told me not to. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, live and learn. But the thing of it is if he had been standing, it would have been a lot worse. So, you know, stand up can be very difficult, but again, it's how you teach it, you know, how you are able to create an environment where you're able to kind of put competition to the side in the beginning so that you can be safe with it. I think that's kind of tough for us guys. So yeah, women tend not to have an issue with that. So yeah.
Yeah, and some of the takedown stuff, those reactions are very instinctual and breaking those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you don't want to be down there. Yeah. So.
Well, it's just like planting your hand, or
That's
that's such an instinctual thing to do, right?
Oh, yeah,
Instead of like rolling with it or smacking the mat, kind of dissipating the force. You want to, and that's how those injuries, like I said, elbows, wrists, shoulders, all that stuff happens. So a lot of that's just, you time under, in position and doing those type of things, I think could be helpful. Yeah. But in an environment that's more conducive to learning and kind of more relaxed, I think. Yeah. And then ramp up the competition, right? Ramp up the intensity.
Hell yeah.
Get that ego involved.
Yeah, man.
Well, cool, brother. Tell us a little bit about GMB, kind of where people can learn more about that, learn more about what you do, and get some information.
Yeah, super simple. Just type in GMB to the interwebs. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. I'm really buckling down right now. I'm putting out a video a week on YouTube. Not as much as you, Chewy, but I am trying to up my YouTube game. And we were pretty strong going. We've been on YouTube for a very long time, but I actually took a break for a long while. But I'm back at it and really trying to focus on making sure that the message that we're trying to get across is coming across in a way that can be helpful in order to help people understand the methodology and help people understand it's not about the movements. It's about, again, the methodology and how that can help you no matter what you're doing. So yeah, GMB Fitness check that out. Yeah.
Cool. And brother, appreciate you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Good to actually get to chat with you for a little bit, and good luck with everything you got going on. Yeah. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that podcast and got something from it. We started off the podcast. Are you including the Wes Watson thing?
I don't know. Do you want to include it, or do you want to put it in the?
I think it's funny.
You can put it in the Patreon.
Put it in Patreon. Okay.
Might be a little. He's the prison influencer. We were talking about him at the beginning of the podcast. It's pretty funny. He's got some. It's been going around. McDojo Life kind of posted about it.
I posted it like a week before, and then McDojo Life posted it. I'm like,
yeah. This guy's
just a clown.
He's funny. He's funny. It's just like, it's the people. If you think about the icy red person, that's the guy.
It's an iteration of him,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's sad is that you see young men sort of falling victim to that. This weird hyper masculinized version of what masculinity is supposed to be. Like, it's like there's the one side of it where there's this hatred towards men, and what masculinity is. There's definitely that. You see that. I don't think that's it all.
I guess we call it toxic masculinity. That would be a good term
I think
for what that guy is.
I've heard college professors literally talking about how the world would just be a better place without men. So there's that. And that exists. There is that, right? And people can say, oh, we don't hate men, we hate. And there are people that do not like men and masculinity and all that stuff, even no matter what the form is. There's the other side though, where it's like the hyper masculine. You can call it toxic, whatever, where it's like, it's so bizarre because it's like the most masculine, manly, the dudes that embody what I think what most of us would be like, that's what it means to be a man, are never like that.
No, they're like dads. They're sensitive. They're emotional, like that. Like they show emotion. They're
to a degree.
Strong.
I mean, they're not
all those things.
They're not blubbering.
No,
right?
It's not at all.
But you can have emotion, be a man, right?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. I just think that.
But again, there's a really good book called Of Boys and Men, and there's a part where he talks about the fact that masculinity is fragile, because masculinity changes. I mean, so does womanhood and everything else, but manhood really changes from culture to culture to culture.
Yeah.
Womanhood does. But there's always this biological sort of basis that's at least starts off. In every culture, there's at least a thread of there's a part of that's pretty much universal, right? From woman to place. For us though, it's very much first off, when you look at a spectrum, men exist wider on the spectrum. We're going to be your guys that build these communities, build these businesses, whatever, like protect our communities. And we might be the serial killers doing all the bad stuff, right? I'm just saying, we're all over the place.
Yeah.
Even IQ scores, our IQ ranges more wildly than women's do.
Interesting.
Right. And then you think about like, when's the last time you heard about a crisis of femininity? You never heard of it. But this idea, this masculine crisis, this isn't the first time.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it changes whatever. So he talked about it in the book, and I won't get it out right now, but talked about, like, basically gave a basis of it. And this was talking about in this book. And it's like, it's interesting to think about. Right. He was saying basically that, like, it's the culture's job to sort of structure these men over and over again, and to craft them into whatever it is our idea of masculinity is supposed to be. And I think we've reached a point in our society where there really isn't a good story. Like, here's what a man is supposed to be. There used to be, we had a good framework. Hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Now, maybe it was wrong in some ways, in other ways, but now we don't have a story. Now it's just like, oh, you go do whatever. Right. And it's like, well, that's a problem, because we need, as guys come out, we need like some sort of, we need
some
a
kind of structure.
We need a structure to follow, because the society has to mold us. Otherwise you turn into, in one of his books, it was like what Thomas Sowell said. It's like, if you don't nurture and like raise your children correctly, especially men, they just turn into little barbarians. Like, it's like he called them barbarians at the gate. Because it's like, you think about, like, what happens if you have, like, for instance, a young man who grows up without good male role models to guide him. Goes in a lot of bad places. Like, you look at a lot of guys, young kids that get involved in drugs, gangs, everything else. I guarantee you, like, I mean, you can go back to Obama and everybody else. Everybody says this, and they, when they're being honest, right? It's a lack of men being around doing their manly duty to take care and protect their families and their kids and their offspring, right? It's not to go get Ferraris and like have a woman like paying for some woman who looks like she moonlighted. That's a strip club, right? Like every one of you guys listening who's like a dedicated father, you're doing one of the most like masculine things, like day in, day out. You know what I mean? Like that's something that's like, worth celebrating and worth talking about, not like going out and like, doing some Ponzi scheme and, oh, look, I got a Lambo. Good. You got a Lambo. So what? When you get ready to kick the bucket, are you really going to care about that Lambo that much? No. But like, if you're like a father and you're getting ready to kick the bucket and you're looking back and there's this little person staring at you with you and they're happy that you're there, probably going to mean a hell of a lot more than a fucking Lambo. Right.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining the podcast.
It is Father's Day. So the people, it's going to release the day after Father's Day. So,
oh, is it?
Yeah. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Happy Father's Day to all the dudes out there, right? Doing your thing. And, a lot of times I know it's, it's hard being a parent. It's hard doing all that stuff, but,
hard being a parent.
I believe that there's certain things that as men we deal with that are unique to us versus things that women deal with that are unique to them.
Sure.
And, it can be tough being a dude. And so,
it's tough being a person in general. Sometimes
it's tough being a person, but I just think there's unique differences to us.
Absolutely.
And again, this isn't a knock against women, right? Of course, because like my wife, she deals with things and she has unique situations and challenges that 100%. I don't deal with and I don't understand. Right.
Exactly.
Like, but again, it's just, I'm a guy, so I can relate more with the things that I felt.
Yeah. We relate more with men and our lived experience as men.
That's what we got.
That's what we are. And women have their own lived experience and they understand women and women's things.
There's no possible way that I could understand what it's like to be a woman. Right. I can't. Right. I can't understand it. So like, and I can support my wife when she's going through her things and whatever else. But we were talking about this. It's like we literally sometimes look at things completely differently.
Yes.
So it's like, I can respect that view. I can whatever, and I can be here to back you up no matter what. Same time, I have no idea what you're feeling and the challenge you face because I'm just different. But happy Father's Day to you guys. Hope you're having a good one. Hope you're doing your thing. And thank you guys for joining us on the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this thing happen. Athletic, ATHLETHC.com. They make microdosed mints to help support you getting into, optimal states of mind for different functions. Again, like one of their mints is called Flow. And the idea is to help relax that noggin of yours to help get you in a flow state. It's a good mint. You're not going to feel loopy. You're not going to have a hangover. You're not going to feel crazy or anything like that. It's very, very mild. but I definitely think it does help. It does assist to, again, help you getting into an optimal state for some of the things you want to do. So check them out. They're one of our newer sponsors. Their website is athlethc.com, athletic. Excuse me. The promo code is Chewjitsu10 for 10% off. Thanks to Epic Roll for supporting us on the podcast. If you guys want to get some awesome gear, great designs, good stuff. I really like their stuff. They make all my no-gi gear right now, and they've been doing a great job. You can check them out at epicrollbjj.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off. And again, check them out, support the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web, one of the OGs in the CBD space. They make terrific products that are third-party tested, so you know what you're getting. CBD is one of those things where it's kind of the Wild West. It's not FDA regulated, which means they can just put whatever they want to in there and slap it on the label. Here you go. I think a lot of companies are reputable, but they go that extra step. They get third-party tested. And again, they make a wide variety of products from CBD, CBN, and even functional mushroom products. But if you guys want to check them out, go to their website at charlottesweb.com. And the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order on whatever you buy. Also, if you want to support the podcast directly, go to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you look on that page, you'll see all the different perks that we offer. If you want to just kind of get an idea of what's there, you can check it out there at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to support us. And if you guys want to get my daily email that I send out and some free resources on how to improve in the gym and get more focused and deliberate with your training, go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you go there, you'll see a little sign up. You sign up with your email, you'll start getting my daily email, and then you'll get the ebooks and stuff for free. And you can unsubscribe at any time should you like. And so, guys, with that said, thank you so much for joining the podcast. We appreciate you. Happy Father's Day to all you out there, and we'll talk to you next time.